Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized to you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation change? Hi, I'm Jerry Mangona, your Edward Jones financial advisor. I live here in Corktown, just a few blocks from the Daily Detroit studios, and when we work together, we'll focus on what's important to you. We'll use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, and resources to help you reach your goals. And we'll partner together to help your strategy stay on track. Contact me toll-free today at 866-975-8655. Again, that's 866-975-8655. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit. We've made it to December 1st, 2022. It is a sunny Thursday in the Motor City. I'm Jer Stays, and today we're going to talk about a newish platform called Soapbox Detroit to make it easier to find the meetings, board hearings, all that kind of stuff that you're most interested in and can make an impact with. Let's just get started. Longtime listeners of the show will know that I passionately believe that local government is the way to change the world. You know, you can pay attention to whatever it is on Twitter or whatever other social network, if that thing goes away, but whatever social network with people with hairdos and what they talk about and all those other things and the back and forth of the pundits. But if you want to change your everyday life, if you want to impact people, city, county, state, local government in your community matters so much. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really glad to be talking to Daniel Arking. He is the chief cook and bottle washer, and to be clear, creator of SoapboxDetroit.com. Daniel, welcome to Daily Detroit.
It's fantastic to be with you, Jer.
It's an honor to have you in the North End studio. It's good to see you.
Thanks so much.
So Soapbox Detroit is a way to connect people to their local government, to keep them aware of things. In fact, on your website it says it's your platform to engage local government. And for now in Detroit, why are you doing this? Because this is a lot of work. Like everything around this is a lot of work. What's the idea behind this for you?
Yeah, so quick origin story. Moved to Detroit to work for the city. That's my day job. Two things hit me right away. First of all, it was hard to just access information from the city. And I say that both, again, during the day as a city employee, but also as a resident. The second thing that I noticed pretty quickly was it can be hard, when you're sitting in your government department in the city to understand when you work on all these issues that impact people directly, but what do they actually think about it? What is the community's reaction to whatever issue you might be working on? It could be parks, it could be water, it could be business development. And that really caught me off guard because exactly as you said, local government is so much fun because it's so intimate and the engagement between leadership and the community is so close. Literally could be neighbors. This was 2015 or so. It was pretty noticeably lacking. Still a work in progress. Definitely not an issue of anything illegal, no conspiracy. Everyone likes to say government is working in the shadows, hiding behind people's backs. There was none of that. It's just the city government, like a lot of governments across the country at the local level, just not structurally set up to be as transparent and accessible for community engagement as I personally thought it could be.
Technology has changed a lot over the years, and the expectations for connecting all those things together have moved at a pretty quick pace.
Oh, absolutely. And the laws on these issues just haven't kept up. Our state laws, Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information Act, etc., definitely aspire towards greater transparency and accessibility, but were written and are still written sort of in an age of hard copy paper. If any of us still work with that, I don't even remember the last time I actually printed something out.
Why is it called Soapbox Detroit? Why is it called Soapbox?
The title just sort of came to me out of just a general principle. You could call it sort of the foundational axiom for this whole project, which is that everyone in the community, every resident, every block club, every local business should be able to rise up on their soapbox and be heard by their local leaders. Nothing more complicated than that. And for whatever reason, I didn't think that intimate level of engagement, that close conversation between the government at all levels and the community members on, again, pick your issue, was quite as close as it could be. So jump forward to, the pandemic. We're all stuck at home trying to make sense of the world. Some of us are baking sourdough bread. Some of us are watching Tiger King. Still haven't caught up on that. I decided
it's worth it.
I will go back and binge.
Okay. It's a train wreck, but it's worth it.
I decided to try and pursue a different kind of train wreck and take this project on. And it was truly a personal experiment. So again, to be totally clear, this is, I work for the city and this is about city government, but this is my personal project. This is my nights and weekends pandemic experiment. This is my sourdough bread, so to speak, to see, again, could I create that greater level or facilitate that greater level of engagement and advocacy. Those are two keywords I like to throw around as much as I can between local government leaders, elected officials, and their community members of all stripes.
One thing, I am a subscriber to the newsletter portion of this because there's multiple portions to this website. I will get into them in a second. I'll talk about the newsletter first part because that is very visible and it hops into your inbox. And one of the things that I find useful about it is that it's a true tool. This isn't really like an act of journalism per se, but an act of sharing information and collating it and making it much more available. And it's even useful to someone like me. And, looking at most recent one that I'm reading now talks about the District 4 community meeting with Councilmember Letitia Johnson. Like, those are the kind of things that you want to know about, but if they're not put in front of you, you don't necessarily see them. Like, you can post something on a calendar. There's a difference between posting something on a calendar and then saying, hey, here is the thing that is important to you. And I think that is an important service and part of what technology can really do with this.
There is, in the lobby of the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center, a cork board, a bulletin board where a lot of these notices of meetings and community town halls are posted. That is the state of technology, again, for the transparency laws that were created. I will go up there and try and take notes to keep track of things, and people will come up and ask if I'm lost because it's so anachronistic. Exactly to your point, it should be as easy as possible. And this whole thing developed in phases. The first question I asked was, well, can I actually figure out what are all the components of this quote unquote city government that we talk about? And I started researching one department and one board and another public authority. And I came up with, I think, 85 or 90 different sort of administrative bureaucratic silos, so to speak. And I had been working for the city for a number of years by then. I didn't even know that a lot of these boards and commissions existed. Sometimes you have a department and then you have a board that oversees that department. And lots of people only know about the water and sewage department. Very few people know that there's a board of water commissioners that makes the policy and sets the rates for that department. We're looking in one direction and the policy is being made over in left field. So just tracking that was the first step. And then exactly to your point, the public meetings calendar was my second step because these are the forums. They're held every day before it all went virtual in places all over the city. This is where government decisions, policy decisions are made. And this is the community's opportunity to share their 2 cents. It may only be 2 minutes at the microphone, but that is the opportunity. So those are the two first sets of information I wanted to target. And again, it's not original, but I wanted to see, could I structure it to be as simple and accessible and easy to read and digest and act upon as possible?
And that's so crucial. That 2 minutes is so crucial because I have seen over the years so many times people have, and not just in the city of Detroit, but in suburbs and county level and the state, you can make so much impact by showing up to these local things. You talk about these kind of boards and the like, the amount of impact you have as a community member who actually shows up and is part of the thing can do so much more
Mhm.
than like being really angry on Twitter about something, right? Like you be angry on Twitter or whatever, but like also this means like you can actually move the ball forward because your message is not going to be as diluted, right? You're focusing in your efforts.
Yeah. I didn't come up with this. I heard it once and have just held on to it that, from all levels of government, all the layers of government that we deal with, and all the attention on Twitter or whatever dumpster fire you might be playing with, the most important two government agencies that will affect your life are your zoning commission and your school board. And that's not a Detroit thing. That is an American thing. I've always held on to that because that gets to just the direct impact that your local leadership has on your day-to-day life. Whatever issues may be of importance to you, you don't have to care about every issue that your local leaders work on every day. But sooner or later, they're going to make a decision that you're going to care about, and that's going to impact your community, your friends, your family, your block. And so just being able to sort of keep an eye, a light touch, and be able to skim on what's going on so that when something of interest pops up, you can jump on it.
I think about not just the needs that, some wonky, podcaster journalist guy, right? Like I have a very specific niche, but I have a lot of friends who do care very deeply about their communities. I think about our block club,
Yeah.
things like that. This makes it accessible to them in a way because it's so clear and it's so clean of like, okay, this is where the thing is that where you can scan this and be like, is this for me?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's different ways that as you grow this, you could even tweak the dials even more, but it allows you to be connected to what's happening in a unique and special way because it serves people where they're at. Like I think about a friend of mine, they got a day job, they got projects they're into, but they do very deeply care about their community, but they cannot pay the bills and spend 4 hours digging through a content calendar, right?
At the beginning of this, when I was sort of, again, deep in the weeds, trying to just research the basics of this, I remember seeing some guide or something, some how-to tutorial online saying if you want to stay on top of what your local government leaders are up to, just check their website each day. And, that'll be updated and you can work off that. And at the same time, from, building out the department directory, I know there's, 85, 90 different departments. That's 85, 90 websites. I'm not going to check that every day. And I'm one of those wonks just like you, and I'm not going to do that. There's no way to ever hope that, people with full-time jobs and families and other concerns are going to be weighed through that. The information may be technically available for them, but it's not meaningfully accessible to them. And that was the gap that I was trying to bridge.
And adding meaning to this is so important. You talked about the department directory. I think that's a good bridge to talk about the other resources on this website. I'm in love with the email. I'm that guy. I send the Daily Detroit email too. I'm a nerd like that, whatever. But let's talk about these other resources that people might not necessarily think that they need, but they're there. Like the department directory you mentioned, I think is great because I think about all the times I have had interactions with the public, with people who like they're very upset about something or they're very passionate about something, but they don't actually know how like cascade or hierarchy works or that there is a symbiosis between the Detroit City Council and the mayor. Like the mayor can't just do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Your mileage in your city may vary, but knowing how the levers go and what they're connected to matters.
We have, one federal government. We have one state government. We do not have one local government. This whole effort is not just trying to leapfrog over what the city, what the mayor, the clerk happens to be doing and the technology they happen to be using. Each of those officials have limited jurisdiction. And when you think of the departments on the executive side that answer to the mayor or the committees of council, on the legislative side, but then you have the school board, which is an independent authority.
Right. In our city, the mayor has nothing to do with the people.
Absolutely.
I get this. That's one of the number one confusions of people.
Yeah.
They think that the mayor is tied to the school board. They're completely separate entities.
Absolutely. Then you get into all the crazy alphabet soup of the economic development authorities, the Downtown Detroit Authority, the Economic Development Corporation. You could literally spell these out literally with an alphabet soup, but it's really hard for people to understand. And there's maybe good policy reasons why all of these different bodies exist for whatever purpose. but it's not intuitive to most people, even though these bodies affect people's daily lives, all over the city.
And what are some of the other resources on the website?
You've mentioned the newsletter. That is basically my effort. Again, once we got the calendar up and running, it's a consolidated calendar for all the departments, all the meetings across the city. Probably about 100 meetings a month are thrown up on there with complete information. I said, well, can we make it even more accessible than a web page? So every night, email goes out with tomorrow's agenda for all the public meetings. It can arrive in your inbox. You can scan it, hopefully in a minute or two, see if something's of interest. And then all the Zoom links, the meeting agendas, everything's up there. You can just one click, get the information you need, see if you want to engage. Another feature that you can get through the calendar, through the directory, through the email are comment forms. Again, we talked about that 2-minute window. That can be really precious at the end of a meeting to engage and to share your input. But sometimes that can come at strange times, maybe in meetings during the middle of the day when you're at work, or it goes late and you just can't stay up. I've been there. Mm-hmm. I have a 4-year-old kid. I can't stay up that late for public meetings.
I'm over 40. I just can't stay up that late.
Fair enough. I am nearly there. So rather than just be limited to these official designated times, the meetings notices that Soapbox Detroit provides includes a link to a comment form so that you can click through at your convenience wherever you are, dash off whatever comments, just write them up, hit send, and it is programmed to go to the correct official. Through email, it'll land in their inbox. They can include it in the record of the meeting. So, today, Council Public Health Committee held, its meeting. It took public comment. If you weren't available this morning, you could have read the agenda, went out over the weekend, and written up whatever 2 cents you might have had before this morning, and it would be in the council members' inbox before the meeting started.
That's so cool. There's a law library here too, because some of the stuff in any city, I'm not meaning to throw Detroit under the bus. It's just we're talking about Detroit because this is soapboxdetroit.com.
Yeah.
You've got so much in this law library too.
So links, first of all, to the charter, to our city code of ordinances. I called it a law library because I suffered in a law library for many years of school. So maybe a little PTSD in that nomenclature, but also tried to, again, in the means of accessibility to facilitate engagement and advocacy, threw up a compilation of recent ordinances that haven't yet gone into our official code. The city, just like every other city, has a natural lag in publishing its ordinances, and that lag can be important when the law is changing pretty quickly. So again, the information is publicly available. It's just not meaningfully accessible yet. And that just tries to bridge the gap as best as possible. The last resource up there is the one little tidbit of original content that I dared to create. It's just a quick how-to on how to have the most effective public comments. It's like 5 quick points. And that was a fun little article I worked on over the summer, again, to sort of collect feedback from friends and colleagues, people I know who are advocates for a profession, and to sort of collect all of their wisdom into, I think, just a 5.2-pager that can, if you have 2 minutes at the mic or you have, a quick email to dash off, hopefully that'll make your comments as effective as possible.
Oh, and I think it's a great document. It makes a lot of the good points, and I could definitely co-sign on that it's a good document. I really hope that you do more of these kinds of things where it's just like a little how-to key in the great way that is so like nonpartisan and not political. Just this is about getting your message across and doing that. It's like, for instance, like one of the reasons why I like talking to the Citizens Research Council of Michigan, right?
Yeah.
I like having them on. I get some things like, oh, you should have somebody from each side. No, I want somebody on who can just, what does this do?
Yeah.
Directly, what does this do? And then we can work from there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I appreciate about this work with Soapbox Detroit.
This is supposed to just be a platform, a tool for anyone to use. I'm not trying to share my own perspective on a given issue. I promise you, I went to law school to have an opinion on just about everything, even if I don't know anything about it.
But it's privately shared, right?
But that's not what this is all about. This is supposed to give you the framework, the basic tools, so that you can develop your opinion and then share that back to your city leaders, whatever it might be. I'm not trying to favor left or right or up or down or anything like that. In my opinion, everyone wins when the conversation includes everyone at the table.
And tools like this are kind of the magic wand of democracy, right?
Yeah.
The magic wand that makes democracy actually happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in the journalism category, I think, as you said. But if it helps journalists dig a little deeper, if it helps block clubs advocate for their needs and their neighbors a little bit more, then that's what it's all about.
And listeners of the show know I'm not like a tablets from on high kind of journalist, right? Like that's just not my style. I'm a dude with a podcast, for gosh sakes, right? Like it's about the conversation and working together for a better community, right? That's what's key to all of this. So how has been the uptake on this?
I will admit I had so much fun in a totally wonky, geeky way building this out and tinkering and experimenting that for a long time. I kind of forgot to tell anyone that it existed.
I appreciate that so much.
Got it to a place where I was pretty happy with it, thought it was pretty presentable, and by then had accumulated a few dozen, close friends and family, my beta testers. But just this fall have started to just spread the word. I promise you there is no marketing budget behind this. There's no budget behind this because one thing law school didn't teach was business planning. But but that's okay because this should be free and, again, as accessible as possible. Uptake has been good this fall. I sort of pivoted from being a tinkerer to being a word spreader, so to speak. And people get it. It takes very little explanation of what I'm trying to do. They hear, stay more on top of what your local government is doing in your community. They're like, hey, that could be helpful.
I'm a big fan of elegant and sharp tools.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm a Mac user. And one of the reasons I fell in love with being and I know there's plenty of Windows listeners. You're all right. We love you anyway. But one of the reasons I am is because there's so much on here that's more about a sharp tool.
Yeah.
It's how I like to operate things. I'm not big into the giant box that can do 50 different things. It's, okay, this is what I do for this thing and it gets the job done really well. And then I can chain it together with different things to get to where I need to go.
Yeah.
And this is a very sharp tool that gets you into the meat of what is happening in your community. So I have to ask, are you looking at Soapbox more?
Oh, always. Always.
Okay.
The more that I work on this, the more I start brainstorming and building that to-do list of what this could be. And I promise I'll just assume that's never-ending growth potential because, our government opportunity, our democracy is, of infinite potential, I like to think. Sometimes more infinite than others, but I think I'm bullish on our democracy, I will say. So yeah, who knows? It's really just limited to my time, my availability. Again, this is my nights and weekends project. So my work on this generally starts when the kiddo goes to sleep and then extends as long as I possibly can.
In so many ways, I am not this person, but if I were Mackenzie Scott and I said, what do you want to do? If you could wake up and say, this is what I want Soapbox Detroit to be, or Soapbox as a platform to be.
Yeah.
And I'm Mackenzie Scott or anyone else to say, okay, here are the resources to do it. In your world, what would you like to see Soapbox become?
I think I want to make it even easier to get the city's information into people's brains through social media, through all sorts of different tools, text, who knows. The second thing is to make it even easier for members of the community, once they've got that information, to react to it, to use it, and to turn it around back to their local leaders. And then the third thing is to share it with each other. I'm, again, trying to build that feedback loop between government and community, but there's nothing more powerful than a coalition, and a coalition is nothing more than a bunch of people joining arms and saying the same thing.
Would you want this to expand past the city borders? Soapbox Ferndale, Soapbox Wayne County, Soapbox Lansing, Soapbox Michigan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, make no secret about that. Again, we don't have just one local government. We have all sorts of crazy layers of municipalities and independent authorities and school boards. And so it can expand through all those layers vertically. It could expand geographically. If there's local government in this country, I want to feel like this could serve those purposes. So we'll see where that takes me. But yeah, I'm trying to aim unreasonably high.
And that I appreciate, because you know what? Our country was built on people aiming unreasonably high.
So we'll see. No expectations other than getting that newsletter out for the next day. I'm really proud to have been able to keep that up, and definitely will keep that up. That's available for free to anyone who signs up. It's a free subscription. You don't have to be a Detroit resident. If you're interested in what's going on in the city, feel free. And when you sign up, that gets you the newsletter every day. It gets you access to those public comment forms. And then again, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, I want to see big things for you, because I appreciate the passion and the desire to connect our community, I think, is something that we both share.
Well, I appreciate that. And I will turn that right back at you, because I appreciate, listening to the podcast every day, hearing about all the issues you cover. I was just listening to earlier in the week, I think, about, grocery stores and food deserts. And I was just thinking there's got to be a lot of people out there. Maybe they want a bigger grocery store, more food options in their neighborhood. There's one way to do that is to advocate for that, to really make some noise, and specifically to make some noise to your local officials.
100%, like your council members, things like that in your district.
Yeah.
They're there to represent you and say, this is something that I really want. And,
Yeah.
and the truth is, the squeaky wheel does get the grease, right? Like, you got to be
Absolutely.
squeaky.
Absolutely. And, I say sometimes facetiously, this town needs better lobbyists. And I know that's kind of doesn't sound intuitive, because we all think of lobbyists as sort of the sharp-elbowed corporate tycoon types. But literally, again, I want everyone to be able to stand on their soapbox and say their piece. I want everyone to be their own best advocate. And I think the civic discourse, the public conversation, is better off when we're all just adding to the conversation.
Daniel Arking, I couldn't have ended this conversation better. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for stopping by the North End.
Oh, it's been so much fun. It's so great to be with you.
And that is all for today. Remember that we've got a newsletter, dailydetroit.substack.com, and to share this episode with your friends, because word of mouth is the best way to push Detroit's conversation forward. All right, I'm Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening. Devin O'Reilly joins me across the table tomorrow. Remember that you are somebody, and I'll see you around Detroit.